Okay, so by the end of this video, you should have the game working like this. Now I've got a snake and I've got some food. The snake can move around, but if I jump on top of the food, then I can, it gets redrawn somewhere at random. And you'll see, I referred earlier in the second video, I think, to the need to be able to get the snake to land squarely on top of the food, and to make sure that the snake doesn't, and indeed the food doesn't land between cells, and hopefully you can see what I mean there. Right, so let's go through how this works. Oh, you'll notice, by the way, that my snake is still happily going off the screen because we've done nothing to detect when that happens. Okay, so I've had to import a couple of other things. Randint here, in fact, just one other thing, I think. Randint here, I'm going to use, this is from a standard Python library rather than Pyglet itself, and that's going to allow me to choose where the food goes. I've added something here to my onDraw. Don't forget that onDraw just erases everything and then draws everything. So I erase everything and then draw the snake, and then this time now draw the food. So this square here is now being drawn at food X and food Y, and I've changed the color of the food to be red so I can tell where it is, but obviously that's configurable, and I think by the end we'll make all these colors easily configurable. Food X and food Y are determined by a call to this place food thing. Right at the beginning I set them to 0, 0. That's not entirely necessary to do them at the module level like this, but I quite like doing it just to make it explicit rather than burying them in a function. And place food just says what we want to get hold of is a random cell somewhere between 0 and the far right and 0 and the far top for X and Y. And this code is rather similar to the definition of snake X and snake Y here, insofar as it's designed to make sure that the food can't land between grid cells. It will end up landing squarely in one or other of them. And you can have a little look. If you get rid of this divided by cell size times cell size thing, you'll find that the food does get placed, but it gets placed sort of somewhere where it's not quite on a grid cell, and when your snake runs over it, you'll find that it might run over the sort of edge of it somehow, but it doesn't get it squarely. Right, what else do we need to do? Okay, so update. This is the same as before insofar as it changes X and Y on the basis of which direction we're going in. Is the snake's change in X positive or negative or 0? Is the snake's change in Y positive or negative or 0? And that's done in the key press code up here. But the new thing is to check whether or not the snake is on top of the food, and that condition is fulfilled if the X coordinate of the snake is equal to the X coordinate of the food, and at the same time the Y coordinate of the snake is equal to the Y coordinate of the food. If that happens, we run a call to place food, which gives us a new food X and food Y, and almost instantaneously after that the onDraw event occurs, and we redraw the food somewhere else, and that's what makes it jump to a different place. What else do I need to do here? Nothing much has changed. The only thing that I do here is having set food X and food Y to be 0, 0, and again I just do that to be very explicit about the fact that they're module level variables. I make a call to place food, and that's what puts it somewhere to begin with. That gives it its random first place. Okay.